You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Grown and Growing. So glad that you're here as always. Today, I have a very fun episode coming up, and I am talking to the two owners of a new wine and decor shop here in DC called VinBohême. I'm talking to my friends Roberta and Monique all about wine. Now, I must admit, even at my big age, I've never come to love and appreciate wine like I should. If I'm drinking, I'm usually drinking a cocktail. I am a sweet cocktail girl. So wine has never really appealed to me on that level. But Monique and Roberta are convinced they can show me the light. And even if wine doesn't become my drink of choice, I can learn to appreciate it. The wine industry is changing. There are more Black and brown winemakers and winery owners. There are more natural wines and vegan wines. If you're like me and thought all wines were vegan, listen to this episode because that'll change your perception of that. Don't be alarmed by the length of this episode. It's a little longer than I normally do, but it's because I have a fun little surprise at the end. After educating me about wine, Roberta and Monique really challenged me to take all that I've learned in our short time together and apply it in a little mini wine tasting. So that's fun. If you want to start the episode at the wine tasting, it starts around the 53 mark. I will also leave the wines that we tasted in the show notes. So if you're interested in tasting those wines yourself, feel free to pick them up or order them at VinBohême, which is also linked in the show notes. So without further ado, I'm going to read the bios of our guest really quickly, and then we're going to hop into this episode. Roberta Hatchett has spent the last 20 years working in marketing and advertising and has decided to add entrepreneur to her resume. She's both an aficionado of wine and decor, but holds a special passion for making a house or an apartment a home. Monique Copeland is the resident certified sommelier of VinBohême. She is also certified in food and wine pairings and enjoys educating wine lovers looking to elevate their palate with wine at reasonable price points. Now, let's get into this topic. Welcome to the podcast, Roberta and Monique. How are you guys?
Good, doing well. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on. This is my first podcast where you guys are together in a room, so I like that.
What first? Yes.
So thank you guys for joining me today. We have a fun conversation, and I'm looking forward to this conversation because I know very little about this topic, and so I'm excited to learn a little bit. As I mentioned in my intro, you guys are the owners, the founders of the wine and decor shop VinBohême. And I want to talk to you guys about, first of all, let's start with the business. Why did you guys want to start a business that focused on wine and decor? Why these two things? Why together? And why now?
We love them. End of story. No. Right. Love to drink. Right.
You love to drink in comfortable places.
Exactly. It's something that we've been doing for so long, like in our just respective lives and together, that because we've been friends for years and years, that we decided let's actually do something beyond just doing it and in our homes and talking about it. Let's just bring it to the world.
Okay. So in VinBohême, let's see. Monique, you are the Vin portion of that. Correct. So tell us, Vin means wine in what language?
It's French.
In French.
Yes.
And so you are the Vin in this whole thing. And you're not just a lover of wines. You don't just like wines. You are a sommelier, a sommelier. Yes. So you're certified in wines. But
yes.
What is your favorite thing about wine?
Besides, it tastes good. Wine tastes good. I love wine because I think it tells a sense of place, and it tells a story too. And I think I've learned to love it even more when you learn to understand it more, and then being on a vineyard and just
more than anything, knowing the process behind it, you know, it really gives you like a sense of place. And sometimes in the wine industry, you know, when they talk about pairing and you know, they say, you know, what's the saying? And it escapes me, but you know, like let's take a wine from Spain. You know, you may want to eat something that is native to that place. With wine, I felt that you can actually taste and feel the place. It's like it's a sense of place. You can really understand what you have in your glass, and it kind of gives you an understanding or a little small understanding of where it comes from.
Okay, I can tell you like it. That's what I hope to learn. I hope to appreciate wine more because I understand it. Because right now I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So, but let me ask you this, Monique. Mm-hmm. Did you like wine the first time you tried it?
Oh, that's a good question. So the first time I tried it, of course, it was probably the cheapest of the cheapest, you know. So of course I probably liked it because it gave you that familiar taste. It was sweet, it was fruity, it was, you know, all of the things that we know when we taste wine as a beginner. I didn't love it, but I liked it, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, and you know, real quick, what I will say, you know, I was used to spirits, you know, the vodkas and the you know, things like that, you know, because I've come from a radio industry background, which is totally different than wine. So all I knew was spirits and even some beers and cocktails. Yeah. So I was used to things that were sweet and, you know, so I liked it. I didn't love it and I didn't understand it until I met
the bohemian, the bohemian part of it. Right. Yeah, well, okay, that's good to know because I am the person. I am the spirits. I am the cocktail. Give me a fruity cocktail, a margarita, a rum punch, things that taste good and fruity. So, Roberta, you are the bohème part of this business. Tell me what bohème is. What does it mean to you? What are you bringing to this business?
Yes. So bohème is more the bohemian lifestyle. And so I don't know if you remember long ago when you and I met, we were in grad school and I was living out in the suburbs and had a whole big old house. I was married and like living this life that I don't even know how I ended up in, but I had like full decked out, like decorated house. And I love doing that. And it kind of started like from that point as a hobby of like interior design and making my space comfortable. And I had this whole house I need to fill up with furniture and stuff. So it started there and it just became more of a lifestyle. And I will say how it, from starting there to more now where I have found my actual like personality and is more my genuine self is like more bohemian. Has been influenced in the way that I look at a space and design and decorate.
Yeah, knowing you for 20 years, you're definitely bohemian. You weren't that when I met you. You were deep down. You were more like, you know, even though we were only 25 or 20, early 20s.
Something. Wow.
You were a 40-year-old white lady.
I just said that to her earlier today. I was like, I don't know what happened. I got married at 23, and for some reason, I turned into a 45-year-old white woman. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was just didn't fit my personality and who I was at the time. I just like was stepping into this mold that I thought I should be in.
Yeah, that was you. So, but knowing you now and getting to know you over all these years, you're definitely bohemian. That is you. So what can people expect from VinBohême? What is it? How do we interact with it? What, you know, tell us a little bit more. Tell me a little bit more about the business.
Yeah, well,
so to answer the first question, what you can expect from you know, from us and from the business, you know, speaking on the wine, you know, portion of it, you can expect some really good, awesome new wines. And when I say new, I'm saying things that are, you know, typically may not be what you see on your everyday shelf. You know, so we're talking some really awesome natural wines, some really good new, fresh, like I don't want to say the new thing that I don't want to do, but just some wines that you're not exposed to, some varietals, some great varietals that you may not be as privy to or aware of by buying from your big box places. Some BIPOC, some women-owned wine brands, and men, and just some wine from really awesome people who really live and breathe and understand and respect and love the viticulture and just the, everything behind wine.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
you and I
say-
have Boone's Farm here. No.
No, you don't, because I would never allow that. That would never happen. I will say, so for the decor side, I think, and this is one thing that I want to stress too, it's more of a holistic like vibe and concept. I think the idea behind why we decided to partner together and why we decided to bring these two things specifically to the marketplace is because our enjoyment of like connectedness and like when you think of, I think the original thing, if I had to put like one image or one picture out there, is like a dinner with friends. Like a dinner at home with friends, you're cooking, it could be a potluck, you have some really good wine, some good conversation. Like that's the vibe and the kind of like the atmosphere we want to create. And so that's why we brought these two things together. So like the home decor items that we're selling are not like, we're not gonna have sofas and chairs and like things like that, like big things, but we'll have those little accessories and things that you can easily bring into your home that are not super expensive. You don't have to redo everything in your home. But like, it could be dinnerware, it could be napkins, it could be tablecloths, candles, it could, stuff that you can put up like for centerpieces, stuff that you can easily incorporate on your walls, that kind of things that like gives a good sense of like hominess.
Yeah, those things that make a home, right?
Exactly.
It makes it comfortable.
Exactly.
So that's cool. So you guys are based in DC.
Can I jump in real fast?
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
When she was explaining that, the first word that came to me was pairing. You know how we pair our wines with our food. Like she was saying, we may not sell you a couch or a bed, but we're going to give you something that easily pairs with your current decor. What you already have. So let's add to what you already have and make it even better, just like wine does with a meal.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get into, we're actually going to talk specifically about wine and how to pair it, how, what you're looking for when you taste it. So we're going to get into that, and we're going to have a mini wine tasting. So I'm very excited about that. So you guys are based in DC. So but you can also buy, things that you are selling, your wines and your home decor items online as well, right?
Right. So we're starting everything online on VinBohême.com. And so everything, both home decor, we're just getting our wine inventory up. So if you go to the site, we're just starting to get a little bit more. We'll have a little bit more product soon. But yes, we'll have both available online, and hopefully soon here in DC, we'll have a brick and mortar shop that people can come in and visit.
That's exciting.
That's exciting.
That's exciting. So tell me, what has been the best thing about, so you're still or very early on in the business, what's been the best thing about starting a business together?
We're learning, really, just learning. It's new, I think, to the both of us. We bring our respective knowledge to it and bringing it together. I think that has been the best thing, and just learning the business from the ground up, really. Wow, it can be very frustrating, of course, because you're building a business, but I think just for me, just learning and just understanding and learning what she loves and learning what I love, and then also trying to put that together to see how we can give what we think the public may love as well. That part is very exciting. Scary, of course.
Yeah. It's a big undertaking.
It's definitely a big undertaking, but I think that, again, as scary as it may sound, that is, to me, one of the best things.
Yeah. The best things for me, honestly, have been the wine tastings, figuring out what we're going to carry in the shop. It's been sourcing of the different home decor items. A big part of what we're doing is finding, again, similar with the wine, is we're finding those artisans, those makers, the small makers that wouldn't normally be in a home goods or, a typical like pottery barn or something. So we're sourcing smaller artisans. We're also, a big thing that's important to us, especially, more so probably on the home decor side, is supporting small communities. So a lot of this first run of the items we have for sale are global, and they come from different countries within Africa. They're supporting direct communities there. There are people that in Mexico that are, small villages that are crafting these things, and they're not going through the machine of American capitalism, and we're trying to source them and bring them and so that they directly benefit those people.
Oh, that's awesome. So a little bit of a mission in there as well.
It
So
is.
that's,
Yes,
I love that.
absolutely.
Yes.
I love that. So I want to move on a little bit and talk to Monique specifically about your experience. So it's one thing to love wine, right? It's one thing to do it as as a hobby but it's another thing to pursue certification in it. So why did you want to become a sommelier? Why did you want to do that? And what did it take to become one?
It's funny, I giggle because I'm just now, finding my way, I should say, So to start off, when you think of the name like sommelier or sommelier, however one wants to pronounce it, you think of the person that works in a restaurant, that works on the floor. They are the people that craft the wine list that pairs with the menu of a restaurant. So you don't see them serving food. You really don't see them walking around as much as a server, but they are there really to help you pair. I knew I did not want to do that. Thinking of my age, thinking of where I've been in my career, I just felt like, I don't want to say take a step back, because it's definitely not a step back, but it was just a pivot that I did not think I needed to do. But I know I like to educate, and I like to talk about it and teach those about it. So that's the main thing that was on my brain when I wanted to go to school. So I started at the Wine School of Philadelphia under Keith Wallace, and her name is Elena Zerby. They both run that school in Philadelphia, but I did not know what trajectory I wanted to take with it. I knew I wanted a certification, but how do I go about that? So I started with taking just one class, just a one-off class. Let me see how I like it. And next thing I know, I was asking, how much is the course? And so really that's how it started. And it was very expensive, no matter what school you go to, very expensive. But I just said, let me just ask, do they have a payment plan? And I was one of the first, I had to be honest, because I'm looking at it like, how do I afford this, So I asked, and they say, actually, we were about to start a payment plan because many people were asking. So they released it, and I signed up, and that's how my journey started.
Okay, so what kind of things do you learn in this course? How long is it, and what types of things do you learn about wine?
Yeah. So of course, in the beginning, you literally learn the beginning. So how to taste, what's in the glass, understanding the grapes. So going into it, I knew we had white, I knew we had red. That's really all you know, right?
Right.
And then sparkling, of course.
Right.
But I didn't know the difference. I was seeing name. Of course, everyone knew Riesling. Everyone may know Cabernet Sauvignon. But just understanding, like, wait a minute, okay, there's hundreds or whatever, different varieties. So you learn from the beginning, the grape varieties, how many grapes, where they come from, whether it was a clone or not a clone, or super intricate like that. You learn how to taste, which is the best thing. You learn about alcohol, the body of it. So you really learn from the ground up. That's typically your base level class or course. And then you work your way up. So you have your intermediate, and then you have your certified, and then you will have your advanced, and then you'll have your master.
Okay.
Yes.
So and how long is that? How long is the program typically? Is it like a year? Is it months? Is it?
Yeah, it can actually take years, to be quite honest with you. And it depends on what school you go to. So we all pretty much receive the same education. The only difference, and I'm speaking it because there's different certification bodies. So think of it as different colleges. So me and Roberta may go to 2 different colleges, but receive the same type of degree. So it's the same thing. So where I went, it takes about close to 2 years to become a sommelier. Yeah, and so I am a certified sommelier, and I am one class. I actually finished that class. I am actually on my way to advanced sommelier. I just have an exam to send in for that, but that's it. Once I send that in, then I'll have my advanced sommelier certification.
Awesome. That's great. So when in preparing for this interview, I really wanted to know how many Black women, Black people in general were sommeliers. I was actually surprised. I mean, I don't know if this is factual, but this is what I found in doing some research, that 11% of sommeliers are Black or identify as African American. But what was really surprised, so I was like, oh, that's a little higher than what I was thinking. But then when you drill down a little bit further and you look at the number of wineries that are owned by Black people in this country, right, in the US, it's very small. It's out of 11,000 wineries in the US, less than 1% of those are Black owned or have a Black winemaker. So and that brings me to my point in talking about wine. It is always, and the reason, I haven't learned about it, because I feel like, historically, wine has been seen as this thing that is pretentious.
Yes.
It is what rich people drink. Yes. I mean, the good stuff. It is what rich people drink. There's a lot of information around it. I mean, there are things that, my very, novice tongue can't really decipher what's in it. And so it was kind of always out of reach, really. And so I am, happy to see that, there are 2 women in the industry, 2 Black women in the industry is really nice, opening doors and also exposing us to other women and Black and brown wineries across the country that we wouldn't necessarily know is amazing to me. So how has your experience been like as a Black woman in an industry that is not predominantly Black? What has been your experience?
It's been an eye opener. It's been a major eye opener, and I can imagine how it would be if I was working the floor in a restaurant. I probably would have a gazillion amount of stories that were less than stellar, so, but so far it's been okay. But that has been with the support of certain organizations that I'm also a part of, that support what we're doing and that supports people that look like me in the industry. And Roberta is part of one of the organizations too. So we have the Roots Fund that I'm a part of. They actually given me a scholarship to get one of my certifications. And then we have the Hue Society. And then there's many others that are out there too that support, but just learning and seeing and getting to know people that look like me that have worked in the industry and may have worked on the floor, worked at a winery or a vineyard. Some of the stories are insane.
I can imagine.
And so Sonia, you tell us, because I can definitely get down a rabbit hole of this, and I've had some conversations with you about how it is, especially for me coming into the industry. Now, I've been drinking wine for many, many years, but coming into the industry, and I'm still new to the industry, but what I've seen so far, it's not unlike corporate. So, and or the education system in this country. So, and I say that to say, I say we, but like Black people, Black and brown people who are working in the industry, whether you are a producer, whether you are a retailer, importer, whether you're a sommelier, there's judgment. There's judgment from the mainstream. And that comes from all the way from like just the education. So if you're not coming from the court and the, whatever, I don't even know, out of London or wherever it is, if you're not educated by, the Harvard of schools, then you're not really, you're not really a sommelier. You're just, you might be a wine aficionado, but you're not. So it's like that level of judgment too. And I've seen, again, so when she talks about being on the floor, a lot of these events where you're on the floor, you're pouring for guests. So it might be an event, right? And I say an event like a wine tasting, a very formal wine tasting. And so they'll bring in sommeliers to do the pouring and the tasting. Now by pouring, it's not just literally, yes, you're filling a glass, but you're educating people from a very knowledgeable place about the wine.
Right.
What I've seen so far, now this is a industry standard of like, this is what a sommelier does. They educate about the wine. what I've seen is that we're kind of treated like the help. Okay. You know, it's a certain
you specifically or all or
Black and brown people are
okay.
kind of like, and it doesn't happen in every single event or every single situation.
Right.
But it's a certain, you know, I mean, we live in this country and we look how we look. You know, when you get that feeling of sense of like you're either being judged or not fully respected. And so I've seen that, and I'm like, and I was kind of hoping that this industry was not going to be the same as the education system or as corporate or like whatever. It's not that different.
I was about to say, Roberta, I don't know why you thought that, because
I had hope.
I mean, I know that I started out saying that wine was out of touch and it's changing, right? There are a lot more. I mean, I think the internet is the great equalizer, right? Because there's a lot of information online. There's a lot of information. You can educate yourself about wine if you wanted to. You know, wine is not as expensive as it used to be. The prices, you know, points aren't there. But yeah, there's a long history of
absolutely. And I'm curious, I don't want to like kind of book on it, but like I'm curious to say that, so one thing that has helped the industry overall and for Black and brown people to be more interested in wine as a thing has been the celebrities who have come out and either endorsed wine, have become producers, have been associated with a vineyard, whatever. It has done a lot to help with exposure and bring wine as a thing to Black and brown people. I'm on the fence of like whether or not, you know, to what extent, like, you know what I mean? Like, is it helping or hurting? You know, because some of these wines that the celebrities are putting out, not for nothing, they're not all that great.
Yeah.
So there's that, but then there's also like with anything, like you have the celebrity version and then you have the real down to earth version, you know what I mean? And so when people are coming to a space based on this celebrity version or like whatever, when Raekwon is out here pushing wine, like how realistic is that?
And Snoop, he has a wine. I saw it.
Yes,
I saw it in the grocery store. But so given that history, what do you guys hope to change about it? What do you want the experience to be when someone comes to a VinBohême event, comes into your store, when you have one, go into your site? What are you hoping to change about that?
Well, I mean, everything that Roberta has said is absolutely true. It really is. You know? And it's crazy because I don't think a lot of those things can change so fast. And that's where people like us, where we come in at. That's where people that look like us are getting into the wine industry and learning and understanding it and being able to educate and teach it the way it's supposed to. Hopefully we can debunk some of those myths, you know, and some of those situations that are real, that are happening. You know, and when people, I'm hoping that people won't look at us in a certain way. People want to look at us how they're going to look at us, period. You know, but exactly. But I'm hoping to educate people that also think like how you were saying, you know, that it's a little off-putting, that it seems like, you know, I want them to understand that it's really not. Because at the core of this, we're drinking grape juice.
Right. And here's the thing. I mean, this is the way I look at it. I mean, there are a million, I mean, Roberta and I work in marketing. There are millions of people, but everybody is not your target. You know, everybody is not right for your brand or what you're trying to do. So, you know, I appreciate what you're doing. So I feel like, you know, I don't know if I'm necessarily your customer because I don't like, you know, wine. I don't know if I don't like it or I haven't tried the one that I liked yet. I don't know if it's an acquired taste and I just need to keep tasting it until I like it. Keep drinking until you like it.
Yes.
I don't know if it's that. Is it that? Is it an acquired taste that you just have to
You know what? And I'm sorry, it's actually a little bit of everything you said. You know, so if there is some acquirement that you do have there, right? But then there is also too that you may not have had what piques your palate. You just need to find what piques your palate. It kind of goes back to what some people say, I don't like Chardonnay, but they will drink sparkling wine all day. Well, guess what? More than likely in that bottle, that sparkling wine or that champagne is Chardonnay. What it is
know the difference.
It's that, and I can explain it when we get into it, but
Uh-huh.
what it is, it could be, it's not that you don't like it, it's the style in which you're having.
Okay.
So you may not like Chardonnay, the California Chardonnay that tastes very
The
oaky,
oaky, buttery.
yeah.
Right.
I've never tasted oak or butter in any wine that I
And you know
tasted.
what? That may be a good thing. A lot of that.
I don't even, first of all, how do I know I'm tasting oak? Like, how do I know that that's oak? Oh yeah, that's oak.
That comes with some of the ways of tasting and drinking. So they have something that we call the 5 S's. That's a really good start. That's seeing your wine, that's swirling your wine, that's smelling your wine.
Mm-hmm.
I'll show
What is
you
swirling? Okay.
We're gonna swirl.
Oh, swirling, not in your mouth.
Yes. Well, no, actually both of those. So you're gonna swirl it in your glass, but then I will also show you how to swirl it and take in some air in your mouth, open up some of those aromas and those flavors, so that way you can get a lot of the components of the grape and of that wine itself.
Okay, so there's the 5 S's. One was C.
Yeah, so you're going to see it. And sometimes I get it out of order. Sometimes I have to think about it.
It's okay. I don't know the order anyway, so it doesn't matter.
You
Go ahead.
The glass, but the first thing you want to look at and make sure that it's the correct color. So when you think of maybe like a Syrah or something that's a little bit bigger and bolder, those grapes tend to be darker in color, that deep dark purple. So you want to make sure that what you're seeing is not it's exactly the color that it should be.
If you know that, okay.
If you know, and again, that comes with time. That comes with tasting and drinking over time. Trust me when I tell you, I am still learning. And any sign that tells you that they're not, they're crazy. You're never perfect in any of this.
To be a somm, to have a very, not even say like an interest, but like have a love for. I am nowhere near somm level certification or knowledge, but I love me some wine.
And she knows
you do. You do.
And I know what I like and what I don't like.
Okay. So I want to get back. So it's C, swirl. Yeah. What's the other one?
Yes. Okay. Yep. So you want to see your wine, make sure everything is fine. Of course, we can get into everything else later. And then you want to go ahead and then you want to swirl your wine.
Okay. And what are you doing when you swirl it?
You are opening it up. Basically, you're letting air in. So air can be a good thing and a bad thing. So it's your enemy and is also a good thing. So for the short term, it's a good thing because air opens up your wine. It allows the aromas and everything to kind of start bursting out, giving you those flavors and letting you smell it. One thing I will say, if you don't swirl your wine, smell it and then swirl it and smell it again. So pour it. It's really good when you pour it fresh. Pour it fresh. Don't swirl it, smell it. Then go ahead and swirl it, smell it again. You will notice some change there.
Okay, so after I'm swirling, then what?
Yeah. So after that, you want to go ahead and you want to put your nose.
No, sniff.
Yes, sniff, smell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely get all the way in the glass. It may look crazy. Trust me, I understand. But what you're doing is you want to go ahead and you want to smell to make sure what you're smelling is exactly what is in your glass. So again, we're going to pour a Syrah. With Syrahs, you get that bold, that fresh, that ripe berries. You get that pepper. So a lot of the grapes, what we call is a fingerprint. Grapes give off what it's supposed to give, meaning like, so a Syrah is going to give you what a Syrah is supposed to give, that pepper smell. A Riesling grape is going to give you that petrol. You're going to have that in there. A Sauvignon Blanc, you're going to get that grassy notes, that pepper, bell pepper. So you want to make sure that you're smelling exactly what is being told in that bottle.
Okay. So I sniff it. I smell it.
Also, you want to smell it to make sure it's good too.
Okay.
You don't want to have a corked wine, which means, again, this goes back to when I was saying air. Air is your enemy and it's also a good thing. When you smell something that's corked, that means air has gotten into that cork some way, somehow. It's going to smell like wet basement. It's going to smell like wet cardboard. You don't want that.
Jeez.
And that's before, so when it's corked, meaning air has gotten in there before you even go to open the bottle of wine.
Exactly.
It means that it was sitting wherever it was sitting, air seeped in there and it caused it to go bad.
Yes.
Basically.
Exactly. Now, don't get me wrong. You can drink a corked wine.
Right. It's not going to kill you.
It's not going to kill you.
But one sip and you'll be like, no.
Yes. You pretty much toss it out. It's time to go.
So
Okay.
just a little tidbit. So like when you go to a restaurant and you order a bottle of wine and they open it in front of you and they pour just a little bit in there, and they want you to taste it to make sure it's not corked.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Got it.
They're not pouring this to see if you like it or not.
Yeah.
They're pouring it to see if it's a damaged bottle.
That's what I thought they were. Did
No,
you like this?
you can tell them, oh, this is not what I thought. And they'd be like,
Exactly.
well, I'm sorry for you. Here you go. Here's your bottle.
Yep.
Is it corked or uncorked or whatever?
Yeah,
y'all say?
exactly.
Okay.
Actually, they're supposed to check it before they bring it out and do it as well, but they also need you to check that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you
Okay.
wanna
So
taste
I see it. I swirl it. I
Yep.
sniff it.
it. And you
What
want to
else?
sip. That's
Sip
when you
it.
go ahead
Finally,
and-
we
Yeah.
sip.
Got to the sip. All of that. Now we at the finally drinking of the wine. Yes.
Okay.
Because we can do all of that. You know,
In 2
man,
seconds.
You wouldn't even know I did it. Exactly.
Okay.
So then you want to go ahead and you want to sip it. And that's when you start the work. When we were saying, remember you said swirl, you know, swirl it in 2 different times. I swirl it in my mouth. So I'll demonstrate it when we pour and we drink. But at that point, I want to go ahead and sip. Oh, okay, that's it. That's what I'm drinking. Let me bring some air in. And I'll kind of aerate that in my mouth right before I go ahead and swallow. So that's also opening up the wine as well. When you
Wow, it's a whole process. It's a whole
It is,
process.
but let me put this caveat. Like this is
Okay.
a blanket disclaimer.
Yep.
You do not need to do all of those steps to enjoy
it.
a bottle of wine.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Yep.
For some people, like for me, again, I'm nowhere near like som level education, but for me, taking those steps is it a part of the enjoyment of it? Because I could just smell, like we went to a tasting a couple weeks ago and smelling it, I was just like, oh, this smells interesting, you know, like good, bad, whatever, smells like a lot of fruit. And then I tasted it and I was like, whoa, this tastes way different than it smelled. Just doing that was like an interesting thing for me to do.
Okay. I'm getting into it a little bit. I'm like, okay, because if I'm just tasting it to taste,
Right.
and that's it, like it's, to me, it's either good or bad. It's either I like it or I don't.
Right.
But what you're saying is that there are other things to pick
Yes.
up on in the wine. Okay.
Right.
Exactly. And then there's the last one is you want to savor it. Yep.
Savor.
You want to
I didn't
savor
even get
it.
to,
Yeah.
we didn't even swallow it yet. We just
Exactly.
swirled it.
And
Okay.
savor is part of the swallow. So basically when you savor it, at that point, that's when you really are making your assessment. You know, you've done all of what you needed to do to get it ready. When you go ahead and you savor, you're basically taking it. You can say what, you know, tasting it however you want to describe it, but that's when you really make your assessment.
Okay.
You know, do I like it? Do I, you know, everything that we've broken down, you go ahead and you put that together. You know, the fruitiness, the acid, the body, the tannins, if it's a red wine. She's looking like,
you're getting into the vocab part of this.
We'll get to that when we start drinking the wine. But I do want to bring it kind of full circle and say that all of these things and the process of learning and like figuring out, like you taste a wine, oh, I can pull some pepper from that, or I can pull some berry. What that does, at least for me, is to help me figure out like if I'm serving a dinner or if I'm having food, then I'm like, this thing that I'm eating is going to be spicy. Do I want to pull this peppery, you know, wine to pair with it? Or some people, if they're having something spicy, they might want something sweet to balance it out. It's just so just like you understand whether or not like you're in the mood for a spicy meal or a sweet meal, whatever. Same thing with wines. You kind of do all those things so that you can learn what that wine is trying to like, what's gonna give you, and so that way you can balance it out with the other things that you're like eating or drinking.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
Y'all getting so pumped. I love it. Roberta's like, I love it.
It really is a hobby. It is.
Yeah. It's so, in your mind, are there good and bad wines? Like what makes a good wine and what makes a bad wine?
I don't know. That's a hard question. Because I mean, sometimes before I think an answer when it comes to a good or bad wine, sometimes I'll say, oh God, this is trash. What I mean is
that's fine. Some wines are trash.
What I mean is, you know what? It may not be my favorite thing. Will I probably finish the glass? Of course I will. I promise you I will.
So
yes, but I'm thinking of it where it's like it's not a balanced wine, meaning all of the components that we went over are not working in tandem really together to give me that best taste. So to me, it's not balanced. The acid and the acidity and the body is just not working together.
Okay, hold on. So let's talk about how the components of a wine, because you guys are talking about fruits and oaks and leaves and peppers. Did you hear Google? She just decided to talk. How does that get into the wine? So when I think about wine, I think there's an alcohol component of it, right? So, and then there's the grape component of it. And people add other additives to it. Like, how does it get a peppery, fruity, oaky taste?
That's a whole big thing.
That's super major. So your grape, again, that goes back to the word fingerprint. Grapes have their own respective fingerprints, period. This is before we have any intervention from any winemaker whatsoever.
Okay, hold on. When we say grapes, we are not talking about the grapes in the grocery store.
No, we are talking
they
about.
They are different.
That's your typical table grapes that come from a different species of a vine. We're talking about grapes that come from the Vitis vinifera. So when we plant vines and when we do all of that in the vineyard, that is coming from what we call Vitis vinifera. That's a totally different rootstock, totally different species of a vine that our table grapes come from. So, of course, Concord grapes, Concord grape is one of the number one grapes, obviously, because it's grape juice, it's grape jelly, it's made for any other thing. The grapes that we're talking about, the main scientific name is from the Vitis vinifera.
Okay, so it is a specific vine. I'm not going to say what you said, but it's a vine specifically for wine making. And what's the difference between a table grape, as you said it, and this special grape?
Well, you can pretty much do the same thing. You can make wine from any fruit. Right. Really, it comes from the fermentation process. Remember, grandma and grandpa down in the South was making wine out of
that cherry wine.
Yes. Okay. So is there a difference in taste? Is there a difference in how the grape is shaped? Is it a difference in the thick? Like, what is the difference between of it? Okay.
Yeah, all of that. Some are thin skin, some are thick skin. Of course, obviously all circle, but some may be a little bit smaller. Like your Viognier grapes tend to be a little smaller than your Riesling. Riesling obviously tend to be a little bit bigger. When you look at them, they all look like the grapes that you see in the supermarket. Of course, I know like our typical table grapes may have like that ashiness to it. You may not see as much ashiness to it, or some you may see. It really depends on climate and which grape it is. But for the most part, they look like your normal grapes, but you'll see variations of red, variations of your typical white grape, which is green, just like your green grapes, but it may be a different shade or something like that.
Okay, so the grape is different. And does the type of grape determine how fruity and how it tastes, or do they just add things in there to give it a fruity, peppery, grassy, oaky taste?
A little bit of both. Okay, so and I can't remember which one I pulled off, but I've gone on a trip and been in the vineyard a few times. If you pull a grape off of a vine, they will allow you to do it. You can do that when you go to a vineyard, but you can eat them. They taste like, they don't taste like a typical green or red grape, but they taste like a grape. If someone handed it to you and you taste it with your eyes closed, you wouldn't know you were eating a grape. But they may be like a little bit more pungent,
a little bitter.
A little bit bitter, exactly. The seeds, you can taste the seeds more than what you can taste seeds in your typical table grape.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will say this, like if I had a Syrah grape, but then had your finished Syrah liquid out of the bottle, kind of can't tell exactly what it is. Some you can. I did experience that, but it takes time. But I will say, like in a blind taste, if someone gave me a grape blindly, I wouldn't be able to taste, I'm tasting a Syrah grape. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Oh, okay. So really the taste of it has to do with how it is processed, I guess, how it's stored, right? Correct. So I guess the oak is coming from the barrel that
The
it's
bar-
stored in.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yep.
So the two things, and also I'll just jump in with like, and not to complicate things, but also it depends on where it's grown, like where the what
okay.
climate.
Yeah.
So like you can have a Chardonnay grape that's grown in a warm climate versus a cooler climate, and they're going to taste different.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And what about the soil? Like does
all
have
of that?
Yes.
All
all
of
of
that
it
matters.
takes
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and that's where all of the intricacies come in at. That's where, again, I'm constantly learning. But yes, soil has a lot to do with it. Climate is really what drives a lot of these wines. Is the
Mhm.
climate. That's why some
Mm.
people say, "Oh, I don't like. Oh, I prefer this wine from this area
Mhm.
because
This
it gives
region.
exactly because it gives a different taste and a different feel."
Right.
Okay.
So the other, oh,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
the other thing I want to address that you mentioned, and you and I were kind of talking about the other day, was about the additives that are in wine, and like
Right.
getting into what kind of additives can be added, why do people do it, like for flavor, taste, or whatever, and then also how that's sparked the new kind of like trend of like natural wines and
Mhm.
not having those additives. So I don't know if we want to like get into that, but I mean, just
Yeah.
I will say that like generally speaking, high level, like yes, some makers, some producers do put in additives, flavoring.
Yes.
It could be like for preservation, but it also can be to enhance the flavors. And I think the one controversial thing that kind of sparked this whole dialogue amongst consumers, because industry people have been talking about this stuff for years, but amongst consumers is that if you are a consumer who is vegan or vegetarian,
Mhm.
there are some wines out there that have additives that are not vegan, that are have animal byproducts in them, and that's a
Mhm.
huge thing because people just don't know. And the way the wine industry is regulated, they're not required to tell you that there's animal byproducts in the wine, and so that
How
has.
would you know? So if a wine says natural on it, you can assume that that doesn't have that?
Well, there's some regulations around that, meaning if it's on that label, meaning organic or vegan, by law, it has to be
Right.
organic.
Oh, so you
Yes.
have vegan wines.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
But you
that's
just can't
weird.
assume because like people think this is a fruit juice
Yes.
that it's not including meat. Like that is a fair assumption to make. Is
It is, because I would have thought all wine was vegan.
Exactly.
Not.
Right. It's not.
Exactly. And real quick,
Wow.
just to even use and I don't yuck anybody's yum. Is it yuck?
Mhm.
Yum? Yes.
Yeah.
I don't yuck anyone's yum. But let's take the Snoop Dogg line. When you look at that rosé, which is very popular,
Mhm.
and it's not the worst thing in the world. Trust me, I
Right.
wouldn't say that. But you look at the color. I want to speak more on that color. That color is a little artificial.
Yeah.
It's some artificial coloring in there. The rosé is not going to come out like that. And don't get me wrong. There's many, many, many different shades of rosé, and that's to the winemaker's discretion. The color of the wine comes from the skins. So you have
Oh.
a different variation of colors of rosé because it's how long the juice has set with the skins. And of course, then so the winemaker, that's their discretion whether they want to stop that contact at 10 days or 5 days or 23 days, however. But the color of that wine, that's a really good example of, you're not going to see a rosé that color.
Okay.
It looks very artificial because there has been some artificial coloring in it.
Okay. So rosé is not supposed to be rosy, like that rosy
Oh, it can be rosy, but it's not going to give you highlighter pink.
Oh, yes.
Highlighter
pink is definitely not a
You're
grape.
not going to get highlighter pink. You're not going to get color pink like your kid's pink bottle.
Right.
Like really think about colors and
like natural colors, the colors of fruit. Yeah, but it's so hard nowadays because all our food is so processed. Even our agriculture, I'm like, I don't know, like what what a real grape is. But yes, if it's highlighter pink, then I'm assuming that it has some additives in it. Okay. So before we get into tasting wine, I do want to talk about vocabulary a little bit before we get into it. Because then, as we're drinking, I can say, oh, okay, this is so let's start with bodied. When somebody says, oh, this wine has a great body, what does that mean? I mean, I have great body. What does it mean for a wine?
Well, when they talk about body, they're talking about mouthfeel. So of course, how it feels in your mouth. So the easiest way to understand body is think about milk. You have your full, your whole milk. Whole milk gives you that heavier feel, that creamier feel.
Thicker. Yeah.
Exactly. So when we talk about a full body wine, think of it as whole milk. When we talk about your lighter body wine, that's your 1% skim milk. That thinner taste. You know, medium body, 2%. You know, so that's really, to be quite honest with you, that's really the easiest way you can understand it, is how heavy does it feel in your mouth?
How heavy does it feel? Okay. What about tannins?
Tannin.
What is tannin? Oh, I'm sorry, tannin.
Yeah. So tannin is where you're going to get that pretty much like that astringent, like that drying, pulling sensation in your mouth. So tannin comes from the skins, and it comes from the seeds of the grape. So the tannins come from that portion of the structure of the grape. The skin and the seeds and the stems, you're going to get the tannins from there. And again, tannins is going to suck the life out of your mouth.
So I liken it to, because I learned about tannins a similar way, and I was like, I still don't know what that means. So what I likened it to, like, you know, when you eat spinach, like sauteed spinach, and it leaves like this almost like a film on your teeth or your mouth. It's kind of like that. Yeah. You won't get that same exact effect from wine, but it's that how it feels, that dryness that you feel almost like a film in your mouth.
Yeah. So is that okay? So that leads me to my next word, which is dry. Is that what causes the wine to be dry?
So dry is what we consider is what we consider like sweetness or not sweet. So when we think about, so when people say, oh, I like a dry wine, they're really talking about the level of sweetness.
So dry means not sweet then.
So dry is kind of like, you have your off dry, you have your dry, your semi-dry. Dry is more on a not sweeter side of things.
I do not like dry. Dry. So tannin is the I don't want to say bitterness, but with tannin leaves a pucker.
Tannin can pucker your lip.
And dry is the sweetness of the wine. So
dry is giving you this.
I never knew that. Yeah. Okay, so dry. So I do not like dry wines. I'm just gonna say this because I'm gonna get it out there. I do not drink wine generally, but when I do, it's Moscato.
That's fine.
And I feel like a little kid when I say that, because I feel like it's the starter wine.
No, you know what? It's fine. All you have to do is find a Moscato that's really well made and one that is super balanced and rock out.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't have to be embarrassed by liking Moscato.
No, but I will say this.
I feel like that's a Black person's favorite wine.
You know, it's funny. It's funny, and we all make jokes about it because it's hilarious. But at the end of the day, it's sad because that's what we have been like stamped as. You know, I've had it happen to me. You're in a restaurant and they want to offer you the Moscato.
Right. They want to automatically assume that, I don't know where we got this stigma, but like Black people only like sugar and sweet stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Probably from me, because that is
So the other
I like sugar and I like sweet stuff and I like Moscato. So it is me. I'm sorry that you guys who have all this knowledge about wine have to deal with that, but I'm like, yes.
Listen, if you love Moscato, our job is to help you find the best Moscato that you can have.
Yes, let's do that. No, but I'm really interested. Okay, so my last vocab word is notes. So when you talk about notes, what are you talking about in a wine?
That's a good one.
I would say the influence. So a note would be, because you can have notes in how it smells. You can have notes in how it tastes. It's what it reminds you of. It's like that's what I mean by influence. So you can smell something, and that's when we said like, oh, I'm getting notes of oak and green pepper. It's not going to be strong. It's not like you're going to stick your nose in a green pepper and that's what it's going to smell like. But it gives you a little hint, a little touch.
Okay.
So it's a note of green pepper. It's a hint of it.
Okay. I think I'm ready to try some wines. Right, tell me about the wines you have me tasting. We have a white wine and we have a red wine.
Can I show you?
Go ahead. Please do.
Look, this is going to be on our site.
So we actually, and sorry about the glare, but we are going to be carrying Where's Linus? And this is your 2021 Sauvignon Blanc out of California.
Okay. Now, you said 2021. How do dates matter? Is it the older the wine, the better, or not necessarily?
Well, okay, so the date is what we call the vintage. So vintage not meaning like, oh, you're old, but you know, it's the vintage. It's the date that the grapes were harvested or picked off the vine.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And the older, the more it sits in the bottle, the better. So some people are like, this is a 1967 Cabernet.
Yeah. So I won't say that it's better because that's someone's discretion. I do love a really good aged wine. I will say that because the structure of it changes. And it's also, to me, it's fun to kind of see how it evolves over time. So I love a good aged wine, but I also love it to compare it to its newer vintage as well.
Oh, I was gonna say, how do you know how it? Oh, but you're comparing it to a newer wine. Okay, so I already poured this and I smell it already. I'm sorry. So we're gonna do the S's. So this is the white. How much do I pour?
You just do a quick pour, maybe like a 1 to 2 ounce.
Okay.
Yeah, hold your glass up so I can see. So
yes, ma'am.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so for the first S is C. This looks like wine to me. Yes.
This is hilarious. Yeah, so you definitely want to go ahead. So the best thing to do to see your wine, if you have anything that's light color or white handy, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be a sheet. Just make sure you hold it behind the glass, so hopefully you guys can see. But you want to use that white background, which allow you to see what's in your wine.
Gives you a blank canvas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a piece of paper.
So just tilt your glass.
Okay.
Yeah, just tilt it a little bit, just make sure it don't pour out. And what I do is I just make sure there's nothing in there. There's no particles that should not be in there. Now, your natural wines sometimes tend to have particles in there. That's a natural component of the wine that's totally fine. It's not going to harm you. But you just want to make sure that that's all you see if there are some particles in there. So this one is really clear. You want to make sure that it's not hazy or looks dirty in a sense. This one here, there's a little bit, but this is also a natural type wine. So you're going to have you're going to have maybe some slight haziness there, but this one here is a very clean looking wine. It's perfect. There's nothing really wrong with it.
So I'm supposed to sniff it now before we swirl it.
Yeah, so what you're going to do is, and I may have given it to you backwards, but at this point you want to go ahead and you want to swirl.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to swirl your wine. So for you, what I would suggest is if you have the table in front of you, just put it down on the table and go ahead and slowly swirl it.
In a circle.
Yeah, you're in a circle.
Okay.
Slowly.
If you're right-handed, I don't know. For me, and I'm right-handed, so I swirl to the left.
Oh, I was swirling the wrong way then.
It doesn't matter. But once you get used to it, you can go ahead and just find yourself walking around.
It's easier on the table.
Swirling and looking.
And Roberta already sniffed.
Yeah. So at that point, you want to go ahead and you want to sniff.
Put your whole nose in that glass.
Yeah.
Okay, I do. It does smell fruity.
You see? Yes. So this one here, this is a Sauvignon Blanc. What you're going to get in a Sauvignon Blanc is your grassy, your green pepper notes. So tell me if you smell anything that has a vegetal type component to it. Really put your nose in the glass. Don't think too hard. It's okay if you don't.
Okay. I don't know. It could be like a pepper.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
It could be pepper, grass, herbs.
Yep, herby.
Okay. Great.
This one in particular also has a little bit of tropical notes on it too. Now, some Sauvignon Blancs, especially from New Zealand, they're really, really, really awesome with Sauvignon Blancs. You'll get that super grassy notes to it. But this one here is California. They tend to balance that out with your vegetal notes and your vegetal aromas with some tropical fruit flavors. So
that's what I smell. When I first smelled it, I smelled like pineapple or like that. That's what I smelled.
Also, too, I do want to, if we have time, I do want to say when it comes to smell, never overthink it. Tell me exactly what you smell. Also, too, you can kind of relate it to, like you say, some tropical notes. Take it back to maybe an experience. Something that you may have smelled on vacation or something that you may have smelled in your past. If it pops in your head, more than likely it's true.
Okay. So we're swirling, we're smelling. Can I?
Put your nose in, you can pull all those components out. Next thing you want to do is you want to take a sip.
Okay.
So I'm gonna swallow so I can go ahead and talk to you guys.
I swallowed it.
When you take this, no, it's okay. I needed to talk to you guys. So when you go ahead and you sip it, you want to swirl a little bit in your mouth, however you want to. But what I do is I like to kind of pull it in,
slurp it a little,
kind of slurp it. And that's
or just make it, just basically what you do. I mean, she's doing it so that you can bring even more air in. I think what we're doing literally because we're swirling so much, I think we're good, but like have it so that it coats all of your tongue. Because the way it hits the front of your tongue might be a little different from the sides and the back.
So when I'm doing, I'm making sure that it gets pretty much all over.
I did like swirl it around my tongue. Okay.
And that way I can get pretty much all of the components that I need to get to make an assessment.
Okay. So what should I be tasting in this?
So here I'm tasting some citrus. I'm taking your typical lemon, some ripe lemon. For me, what I've gotten was a little bit of so that part of the lemon where you see a little bit of that white, like the skin,
like the not the zest, but the
you call it the pit.
Yes, the pit.
Yeah,
the pit. I get a little bit of that too because you know those components.
Now, why is the pit in here? I don't like the pit.
Is that actually in the wine?
Oh, but that's what I taste.
It's just a little note.
Oh, it's a note of pit. I'm sorry.
But I will say, I don't know if you guys picked it up, but I did. What I am getting is a little bit of vanilla on this one too.
It was something sweet. I was like, this is something that was giving me a little bit sweeter than a typical Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah. And I believe this one here has a little bit of oak on it.
I need to taste a little bit more of different wines because I do not taste vanilla and I do not know if I'm tasting oak. I don't
smell
know.
it. I actually get vanilla on my nose. A little bit of sweet smell to flavor. Some vanilla.
Okay. I'm gonna have to take
also it happens over time as you drink different wines. So
you drink, I feel like I need to compare it to something to be like, oh yeah, I did taste vanilla in that.
Right. Compared to compared to this, that definitely smells, or tastes like vanilla. That will absolutely
the whole point of a wine tasting.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's go to the red because I want to.
Well, before we go to the red, I want to talk about pairing for some.
And also I want to talk about acid. That's the one vocabulary word that we didn't hit, which I think is important because like some people they were like acid. I don't want to taste acid. What does acid mean? All it is a description. Acidity, and this Sauvignon Blanc typically is a good example of something that has like acidity. Basically, all that means is like when it hits your tongue, it like sparks something. It almost makes you salivate.
Yes.
Right. So like if it hits your tongue and you almost salivate in reaction to
that's the acid. Okay.
That's the level of acidity.
Exactly.
So the more you start to salivate, the more acidic it is.
Yes.
And acidic is good. You love acid. Okay.
And some people don't. Like, I'm just like Matt on acid. So I'm just like, I might seek out a wine that is lower in acidity.
It's amazing how physical drinking wine is.
Yes.
It is a physical experience. You're salivating. It's like your dry mouth. You have, coating on your teeth. Yep. It's very physical. You gotta smell it. I'm learning a lot. And this doesn't, knowing what this doesn't taste as bad. Now, if I would have ordered, I would have been like, okay, this is very like lemon, the taste of it. But I do appreciate it more given the smell, like the smell of it. I honestly can say that made the wine taste better because I don't go around sniffing my wine. So it does bring when you said that, it does smell fruity to me. Like I picked up fruity notes. I do smell a little bit of like you said, what a green pepper would smell like, which, has a very, to me, a green pepper has a very slight smell, but I can smell it in here. Okay. So what would you pair with this? So you were talking about pairings, Monique. What would I pair with something that is similar to this white wine? What goes well with this?
And first I want to say, I'm so glad you changed how you're holding your hand on that glass. So
I do know that.
Listening, yes, we love a good stem. A stem is the best glass for you to have for your wine, and we won't get into glass styles. That's a whole other thing.
So you're not cupping the bottom.
Yes, don't cup the bottle. Don't hold it by the bowl. Hold it by the stem. That's simply because you do not want to heat up your wine. You want it to get to a temperature naturally. Your hand will heat it up, and you don't want it to. You don't want to do that.
Amazing. Thank you guys. This is gonna be a long one, but it's a good one. I feel like
it always is lemon balls.
Right. I feel like I've learned so much. I've had my little red. I didn't even know what a Syrah was or that it was even a wine, but now I know. And we've had our Sauvignon.
Swirl.
Yes, I like this one. This one was good.
Okay.
So thank you guys so much for your time and for your expertise. Monique, keep going, keep busting open doors, right? Because we belong in every room that we find ourselves in. We belong in rooms that we belong in every room. So keep, breaking down those barriers. And Roberta, keep giving us, things to decorate our home so it's nice so that we can enjoy our wine in spaces that are beautiful as well. So thank you guys for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us. Thank you so much.
Yes. And for everybody else, I will see you next time.